people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Bumgarner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is supposed to be former champion Delphine Persoon's final fight in the sport of boxing. Tomorrow in Belgium, she will be taking on Agustina Rojas. Word around the campfire is Delphine Persoon spoke to a periodical over there in her native Belgium and told them that in so many words, this will be her final year in the sport of boxing. So close to challenging this division's undisputed champion, Alicia Baumgartner, if not challenging Alicia, so close to winning a belt.
Delphine is in a pole position, at least by way of the WBC, to fight for that title, to challenge for it, whether Alicia still has it or not.
I'm not sure what the situation is with all of the alphabet titles at 130 pounds, it being that some weeks ago, you will recall, news broke that Alicia Baumgartner had tested positive for a banned substance or banned substances.
And I remember Alicia professing her innocence. I remember hearing that she'd conduct her own investigation to clear her name. But as it stands, we haven't heard any new news in reference to that. And we don't know her status at this time. Is she still undisputed champion? Will she be stripped? Has she been penalized?
It all ties together. Delphine Persoon was en route to challenge for the WBC title, but the WBC champion, we're not sure if she still is WBC champion. We're not sure if Alicia still has all of those alphabet titles. What we know is that the decision in the Lenardatu fight, it hasn't been overturned. Usually, if a fighter tests positive for a banned substance and it comes out after a fight, the decision in the fight is overturned and it is ruled a no contest. But the decision from the Lenardatu fight, it hasn't been overturned.
There's been no news of any of the alphabet organizations stripping Alicia Baumgartner, so I'm going to assume she still has those belts. Maybe Delphine is retiring because she feels she's not going to be able to get Alicia in the ring, or maybe it's because of the Bomi Ray Shin fight.
That was Delphine Persoon's last fight a few months ago, and Bomi Ray Shin is a carbon copy of the fighter that Delphine used to be, just several years younger. We can't forget that Delphine, she is up there in age. She's in her late 30s. She's been around a long time. And between not feeling like she's going to get Alicia in the ring, getting along in the tooth, and physically taxing fights like the Bomi Ray Shin fight, on that predication, she's packing it in. She's calling it a career. Still one of the more fearsome fighters and fearsome punchers anywhere at or around these weights.
If these rumors are true, and she's calling it a career, I can only imagine that's why, because she's getting up there in age, she doesn't think she's going to get Alicia in the ring, and she had a very hard fight in her last fight with Bomi Ray Shin.
Feeling Father Time catching up. If these rumors are true, we have to imagine a super featherweight division without Delphine Persoon. And ranked right behind Delphine in the WBC's rank standings is France's own Elham Mekhaled, who Delphine Persoon fought, who Delphine Persoon beat. And not just Delphine Persoon, Alicia Baumgartner fought Elham Mekhaled, fought her and beat her too. If by some chance Alicia is stripped of the WBC, or maybe she's not stripped, maybe she just moves up in weight, vacates the titles that she's got, if she's still got them, Elham Mekhaled is in a pole position
to step in and step up after Delphine Persoon retires. She would be elevated to number one. Bomi Ray Shin, who I just mentioned, she would be elevated to number two.
I mean, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going to happen. But if Alicia vacates those titles, if they become available for other fighters to fight for, and Delphine Persoon really does end up retiring, the next WBC champion could be decided between those two, between El Hamechaled and Bomi Reishin.
It's all very fluid at 130 pounds right now. It's all very immaterial.
So it all ties together. Whatever is or isn't happening with Alicia Baumgartner, whatever is or isn't happening with Delphine Persoon, it all has a palpable effect on the landscape at 130 pounds. And things, this time next year, may look very different at the weight.
Delphine is set to retire this week.
And I really wasn't expecting that. In men's cruiserweight news, former WBO super middleweight champion Zurdo Ramirez wants to get his hands on Badou Jack, and I think his attention may be focused on the wrong fighter. He's only targeting Jack because he still thinks he's WBC Cruiserweight Champion. I guess nobody told him the title has been vacated. To become a world champion, the first Mexican world champion at Cruiserweight, Ramirez told Hot Boxing Minute during a recent interview when asked to expound upon his goals for the following year. That's my plan. I've already stated in a number of videos by now that Badou Jack is on his way north of Cruiserweight to Bridgerweight to take on Poland's own Lukas Rozensky for Lukas's WBC Bridgerweight title. The WBC title at Cruiser, it's vacant, and it's going to be on the line very soon in Florida when former champion Lunga Makabu takes on Noel Gavor in what is a Don King promotion, if you can believe that. Not only is Don King still alive, he's still doing fights on a much, much smaller scale than he used to, but he's doing them. And if it's Zurdo's goal to become WBC champion at this weight, that's who he needs to keep an eye on.
That's who he needs to keep an eye on. The WBC title and whoever's holding it, it's still Zurdo's best bet at becoming a champion at this weight, because I don't think he's got it for Jai Opataya or the winner of Chris Billum-Smith versus Matthias Masternak, even Arsene Goulamarian.
Jai Opataya, IBF and Ring Magazine champion of Australia, he's too crafty, too strong, too good for Zurdo Ramirez, put simply. And Chris Billum-Smith versus Matthias Masternak, the winner of that fight, they won't be available to Zurdo for some time because whoever wins that fight, they have to fight Richard Riakporhe thereafter. Richard is the mandatory challenger to the WBO title. You think about Arsene Goulamarian.
He's a full-fledged cruiserweight and a strong one. A mid-range to inside fighter, the same kind of fighter that Zurdo used to be up until recently. In Zurdo's last fight, we saw him moving more, boxing more.
Taking the WBA title from Arsene Goulamarian wouldn't be easy for Zurdo. Not that it matters anyway, because Arsene Goulamarian is currently under orders to satisfy his mandatory challenger, former cruiserweight champion of Cuba, Uniel Dorticos. So not only are some of these fights more dangerous than Zurdo is used to, but a good number of these guys, they're not available right now anyway. Thus, the winner of Makabu versus Gavor,
that's his best bet. Golden Boy Promotions, they've got to pay to play.
There's no two ways about it, no two ways around it. The WBC title in many ways is the most accessible title, the most attainable title for them at this time. Very recently, their guy, Alexis Rocha, got his ass handed to him down there at welterweight. And Alexis was one of the few guys they had that was in world title contention.
He's not anymore, but Zurdo still is. And sacrifices need to be made. They need a champion.
Lunga Makabu, the former WBC champion, lost the title getting stopped by an aging Badou Jack, who moved up from 168 up to 175 and subsequently cruiserweight. And he spent about 3 years there before he fought Lunga Makabu and stopped him, knocked him out. And I feel that if an aging Badou Jack can beat Lunga Makabu, then perhaps so can a younger Zurdo Ramirez. That's his best bet if Lunga wins. Now, if Noel Gavor wins, well, it might be a little bit more difficult, but still doable.
More doable than beating Jai Opataya. I don't think he can beat Jai Opataya.
The other two champions at the weight, they're not available anyway. Zurdo, in his last outing, he labored a bit with Joe Smith Jr., and he spent less time in the pocket and more time on the move, bouncing on the balls of his feet, creating space, and boxing. It's not what you're used to seeing from Zurdo, and perhaps that's because he don't got a size advantage as a cruiserweight.
Oh yeah, he was big for super middle and even big for light heavy, but at cruiser, you can't hope to win all these fights through strength of arms. you're gonna have to box.
Move around, use your jab, because you can't sit in the pocket with all these guys. The idea that you're going to outmuscle them, the size advantage you benefited from before, you ain't got it now. So some things are going to have to change.
Some already have.
This is a much easier weight for Zurdo to make than, say, light heavyweight, but it is a trade-off. Where you ain't gotta kill yourself to make cruiserweight. Cruiserweights themselves, they might kill you. Men's heavyweight news, the continued fallout from this past weekend's circus fight. Eddie Hearn says the value of Fury versus Usyk has plummeted. People want to see the Ngannou rematch.
Not me. I wanted and still want the Usyk fight so Usyk can take that green belt from him and send him on his way.
Last Saturday night in Saudi Arabia, Fury struggled to win a razor-close 10-round split decision over Ngannou, who was making his pro debut. I think Tyson Fury is going to find it difficult over the next few weeks because it's going to be on top of him, Hearn told the MMA Hour with Ariel Hawaii. And he doesn't like that. He doesn't like the criticism. And he'll probably take a break from social media or media and just sort of slip away and say, I'm gonna just chill and family time and Christmas and stuff like that. But it will hurt him, the criticism, because it's massively tainted his legacy. You know, they called off the post-fight press conference. If you needed any indicator as to how thin-skinned Tyson Fury really is.
Do you remember when he made an appearance on True Geordie's channel? True Geordie just asked him a couple of questions, legitimate questions that needed answers, and Tyson Fury lost it with him, stormed off.
And this past weekend, in order to avoid being asked any questions, he called the post-fight press conference off. It's an interesting dynamic now. I said after the interview, it was a bit of a snap reaction that the Usyk versus Fury fight is dead. It's obviously not dead. It's still a big fight, but the value of that fight has plummeted because really, you want to see him rematch Francis Ngannou. And I think Francis Ngannou now sits there with plenty of opportunities, Hearn said. It's actually amazing for boxing and MMA. A lot of people are saying this is terrible for boxing. Some guy has just come and beat Tyson Fury. It's like, mate, do you know how many people are talking about boxing today? Actually, I just got back. I've been to the gym and everyone's talking about it. And if you're Francis Ngannou right now, you're sitting there as one of the most valuable boxers in the world. And you're right. He can go back into the MMA world and have a massive fight. Now, he's a huge name. Huge. Good luck to him. Eddie says that this isn't necessarily bad for boxing because boxing is all people are talking about right now, though not in a positive connotation, a negative one. That here's what's supposed to be this era's best heavyweight, and he's getting his ass handed to him by a debutante. A debutante he couldn't knock down, couldn't knock out.
Oh, yeah. People are talking about boxing, but not in a good way because this is what a champion in the sport of boxing looks like. I've been telling you the whole time, Tyson's not as good as people think he is.
Not as great as they say. In the sport of boxing, people tend to lean into extremes too easily. It's not that Tyson Fury's all bad, it's just that he's not that good either.
Not as good as they say, and Eddie Hearn says that Tyson Fury, he looked petrified. After the knockdown, he didn't want to engage. He didn't want to commit.
Having felt Francis Ngannou's power, by all rights, a debutante shouldn't be able to land a punch like that on what is supposed to be this era's greatest heavyweight, unless he's not this era's greatest heavyweight, and that was just a sales pitch.
A lot of people bought it. I didn't.
I thought he won the fight, and for a debutante to beat the world heavyweight champion is just the most unbelievable feat. And I know that he has the respect of people and all that, but he should actually also be walking away with the greatest victory in the history of boxing. That's the reality. I can't believe he did it, Hearn told the MMA Hour. You can't not respect what he's done. Like, you can say Fury wasn't focused, you can say this, he went in there under immense pressure against a guy that is difficult and awkward. And just to explain it to people that might not follow boxing as much, the little things that Fury does, the work with 99% of boxers.
Things that work on 99% of boxers.
Just didn't work with Francis Ngannou, like the feints, the traps he's setting. Whether that was brilliance or naivety from Ngannou doesn't really matter. I have to give him respect, and once again, I think you're giving Tyson Fury too much credit. Things that work with 99% of boxers. For starters, Francis Ngannou was hardly the first guy, and that was hardly the first time that somebody sat Tyson Fury on his back pocket. If you've been paying attention, he's been sat on his back pocket by Nevin Pajcik, sat on his back pocket by Steve Cunningham, sat on his back pocket several times throughout several fights with Deontay Wilder. Francis Ngannou coming in and doing it as a debutant, what that really means is that Fury isn't as good as you guys say he is.
Because a debutant arguably beat him many years ago, a journeyman, and John McDermott arguably beat him. And it doesn't get said enough. It doesn't get brought up.
I've never seen Tyson Fury look like that, Hearn said. He looked petrified. When he got dropped in the third round, he did not want to engage. He was thrown around like a rag doll in the clinch. That Francis did so many basic things well in there. His guard was solid. He caught shots. I'm still shocked. And if you take a step back and you look at the whole picture, Tyson Fury's whole career, what you come to realize is that while he's not a bad boxer, and he's not a bad boxer,
he's nowhere near as good as they say he is either. Most of what they say about him is predicated on how he looked fighting the same guy
Wilder
3 times over the course of 5 years. Because before that, they weren't saying this kind of stuff.
that years ago, he needed 2 fights to get 1 decisive win over a journeyman in John McDermott, and that years later, he now needs another fight with a debutant to get 1 decisive win over him. It's like everything is coming full circle for Tyson Fury, and people are starting to see what kind of fighter he really is and what kind of person.
Calling off the post-fight press conference so you don't have to answer any hard questions, so you ain't gotta face the music, says it all, doesn't it?
One thing Eddie said that I have to agree with is that the value of Fury versus Usyk, it has been affected. The value of that fight now has been affected when you realize Tyson Fury just labored with a debutant.
Granted that Francis Ngannou had the element of surprise and a lot of power, perhaps more professionalism than Tyson Fury, though if you are who they say you are, then this shouldn't happen. There's no excuses for it.
To get the full picture on who Tyson Fury really is, you have to take a step back and look at his whole career, from the beginning to where he is now. A capable boxer, and he is a capable boxer, though far from perfect and far from what he's made out to be. He's got a gift over John McDermott. He's been floored several times. I mean, how could he be this defensive wizard having hit the deck as much as he's hit the deck?
What he really is a defensively minded fighter with a very nervous style of fighting, and the only time he's ever looked like a wrecking machine, like a bully, was with the same guy.
Wilder.
Was with Wilder, who's got 2 left feet.
And no coordination, no cardio, that the only time you ever looked like a juggernaut, the only time you ever looked invincible, this entire air of invincibility, all stems from you fighting a one-trick pony 3 times.
He's not what they say he is, and I've been saying that a while. That didn't start after this past weekend's fight. I've been telling you.